There you go. And we're live. So I guess I'm just gonna intro it there, just some talking. So welcome back to another episode of Oceans Apart. It's your beloved hosts, Declan Moresi, with two R's and two S's, which I messed up on just to make sure that. And your beloved favorite Ukrainian Swedish man, Artem. Welcome. How are you, Declan?
I'm so good. How are you?
Well, honestly, I just want to first off just mention again, as a continuation of how Liverpool is a shite team and a shite
Oh my
club and
god.
are never gonna win anything and never gonna achieve any success, as they just lost on PKs in the Community Shield towards Man City. So once again, I am proven right in that Liverpool is shit, Christian is wrong, and may the seven gods bring us a lot of joy.
I was just about to ask who brought up Liverpool the last time. Like who even asked you to talk about Liverpool last time?
That was Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, he brought us one good topic, so
I know, yeah, that was the Liverpool one.
I can't really blame him for that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm still waiting for him to reply to me. He hasn't I don't know if you see the game or not, but it'll come. It'll come.
All right. Well, what are we talking about today, Artem?
We're talking about how to achieve fucking guns.
Whoa. Whoa. That was.
I don't really have anything, man. You need to show your like just fucking.
I'm good. It's just not even there. It's like, what's that?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, my biceps fucking hurt right now.
Really?
Yeah, I did like a bunch of band assisted pull ups and just like squeezed real hard at the top, like a really light band.
Yeah.
'Cause, I'm jacked. But and like then I did chest supported row and then curls.
Oh,
Just like put it like ISO'd it right at the top and then controlled it down. And my biceps are still recovering because they're tiny and small and weak. But yeah, I mean, we can just jump right into hypertrophy if you want to.
yeah. No, I don't have anything much to say. Just like my back hurts as always from
Oh,
math.
okay.
So like, yeah, it's as usual. Like we're still here though. So yeah, let's just jump right into it.
Surprisingly, my back doesn't hurt. So I brought notes because I have to keep myself concise. Um, I like that you just agree with that, but let's see here. So, I mean, the biggest thing I think that's worth mentioning is kind of relating to our conversation last time about like effort
Mm.
and how hard it is to do a lot of things, and people don't even realize how hard the thing is to do the thing. So, really, like, you have to realize that forcing cells to grow is actually really hard at some level
Mm.
because, like, you're almost forcing the cell into a stage where it's, like, not dying, but dying because the like forming a telomere and then dividing the nucleus into two is really how a cell grows and divides itself, and that's really like a cell almost like dying but staying the same.
Mm.
Like it takes a lot of energy for that to occur, and it takes a supreme amount of stimulus for that to occur. That's why, like, if Mike Israetel is bragging about his back size, it's like minorly different from year one to year two. It's like not a whole lot different, but he's a little bit bigger.
Mm.
And so, like, at that level, putting on like 2 pounds of muscle mass in a year is really, really good.
Mm.
Excuse me. At the level of most people, though, that's not that impressive. But in a training career, you're probably going to max out at about like 40 pounds of muscle gain.
Mm.
Like the other stuff is really just fat composition and bone restructuring and all this other stuff that's happening, but
Mm.
not necessarily pure like good muscle size.
Mm.
Unless you're on steroids, then it probably is muscle size. Um, so I mean, starting with that, it's just really hard to force cells to actually kind of divide and conquer because you're aging a cell.
Mm.
Like, and and obviously, right, the body is not tuned to burn out in 10 years. It's tuned to go for, I don't know what the average age range is now, but it's tuned to go for like 70 plus years. So you're kind of forcing it to accelerate its aging process,
Mm,
which is not necessarily the best thing in the world.
mm,
Um, which is kind of like, so that's just kind of something that to keep in mind here is like accepting the kind of implications of your muscle building diet. I think an ant just crawled up my leg. Oh yeah, there he goes. Um, so anyways, that kind of touches on the first little part of that, which is kind of behavior. Like it's gonna suck a lot, and you kind of have to keep going until it doesn't suck, which
yeah,
is never gonna happen.
yeah.
So you just have to accept that it's going to be terrible for a long, long time. Um, and I mean, really, that's it for behavior. I
Uh,
mean, unless you want to touch on something to do with your experiences with Math One and behavior.
Well, I wasn't really. I might do a little bit of that, but I was also gonna say, like, do you know who Dorian Yates is?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I was watching also a little documentary today as well with him, and like, I feel like he puts it like in a really nice way as well, in that, because like he knows about building size. Like he
Hmm.
was 6 times Mr. Olympia in a row.
Yeah.
But that like in the beginning, that most people know this as well, is that it's so easy, like just get muscles or like get strength or like build any strength at all, just because you have not experienced any sort of stress or stimulus at all on your body. So it's
Yeah.
just like for the first, I'd say 1 or 2 years, it's like gonna just peak, and then from there you're just gonna plateau, and that's where like the really hard stuff comes in, because now you've like hit the comfortable zone, and now you really need to do like the really uncomfortable, and like as
Hmm.
you were mentioning in the beginning, like the really hard work, which you don't want to do. But if you want to get okay, sicko mode, you need to go sicko mode. Like it's a little bit of that. Like I feel a lot of people just they don't want to do it. It's like the same thing. Like I was doing because I had like did mass today. That's maybe why my back is hurting as well. Like, man, but like it's just, especially I feel like the worst thing of all is like the deadlifts, man. When I'm doing mass, it's just that like you feel the pain and you're like, I have like 6 more sets, and you just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the last one, you just like you have to just like kind of push through. It's like kind of you come to a zone where like if something breaks or something just like happens to you, it's just gonna have to happen. But it's like it's a price you have to pay if you want to get bigger or stronger. But it's also very hard to do this because, as you mentioned, I think also mentioned in the first episode, we're not wired to want that. Like the brain is not wired to want to get bigger. It's wired to survive. So it's like, and we're basically killing ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, like even going into more like discomfort, um, it's so research has been done, and if you're gonna do a set, then it has to be to like an 8 out of 10 RPE or 2 reps in reserve.
Mm,
So like if if you and I are doing like 15 reps each, and I pick a weight that's like I'm kind of squeaking out the 15th rep, and you're just like using all like ligament structure and just like bouncing reps, and really stretching out your tendon to get like elastic energy to push weight,
mm,
then you're probably going to grow less than I am, because it's like I'm truly like recruiting and fatiguing muscle,
mm, mm.
um, and kind of sending that signal to the musculature to grow.
But
And
it's like that thing where it's like, where was it work is like, was it like distance traveled like by the no force, or like fuck, I forget. You probably know this, man. But this is gonna be so stupid putting this out now. But anyhow, it's like force divided by like or times the distance. But essentially, it's like it's the distance as well. That's kind of also why like the squats, and that's probably like the thing like most people like always pick on people just because it's like the little quarter squats is like this much is like you're just going
yeah,
down. It's like it's ridiculous. You're not doing anything.
yeah, it's yeah, you do need to stretch muscle, which is a perfect little segue. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Into
I got you,
so
Bubba.
like so I have like 2 pages of just notes on like every body system I could think of. to try and kind of subject the listener to hypertrophy hell through physiology, because I'm a nerd and that's what I do. But to kind of bring it to like a very what's it called, applied standpoint, like one of the biggest things is mechanical tension in terms of growth, and mechanical tension is just the amount of basically like weight you're moving and the output required by your muscle to move that weight. And there are a few mechanotransductors, is what they're called in the muscle. And basically what their job is to say, yes, we're moving a lot of weight, or no, this is not really that hard. I don't need to contract that hard. And then secondarily, their job is to regulate the start of the hypertrophy mechanisms. So the really big one that I remember the name of is Titin, which is kind of, if you were looking at a sarcomere like filament, then it would be, if coming off of this is myosin, then like kind of going this way is Titin. And it's a pretty big filament, and basically like as you contract muscle and the Z discs move this way, the Titin also moves this way and kind of compresses itself. And so it's sensing like how much compression is being forced into the muscle. So then secondarily to that, it kind of will then regulate how much actual like hypertrophy stimulus is regulated. And then the other way that the hypertrophy stimulus is regulated through mechanotransductors is, so actually muscle force moves laterally. It doesn't all move like sagittally, pretty much. Like it doesn't move forward, back. It moves laterally mostly, like 80% of it. So it'll move out to costomeres and the extracellular matrix, which have a few different transductors in them, which will then also regulate the hypertrophic response. So really the point is to like move decently heavy loads from like 60 to 80%, a lot. And yeah, so from that standpoint, that's where we're at there. And then, I think a really good place to go with this is hormones, because a lot of people say that hormones are necessary or they're completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I like to think of hormones as like setting the stage almost for you to like become hypertrophic. And like anabolic is AF, because if you're not able to get anabolic AF, then what are we doing here? So testosterone definitely grows muscle, for sure, 100%. It's stimulated at higher loads, like 85%, I think, and it directly affects the nucleus and how much transcription is occurring, which helps. Translation is the limiting factor to muscle growth in terms of like gene expression, but and protein synthesis, but still like a pretty good start there with testosterone. The issue is you have so little free testosterone in your blood. I think it's like 2% of all testosterone. Most of it is bound to two different compounds that I'm totally not remembering the name of. One maybe albumin, though I don't think that's correct. But testosterone really is like the hardest thing to get to grow muscle. And that's why like, intaking testosterone works really well to build muscle. It's because you have so little free testosterone that just dropping like a huge bolus of testosterone into your body works so well. Downside there is it lowers your, testosterone produced by the body, but whatever. So really, I think the biggest thing that testosterone does is it keeps nerves functioning at a high level. And so really, I think that's important from a contractile mechanistic standpoint, like trying to get muscles to contract really well. while we're kind of on that subject, like epinephrine and norepinephrine are also kind of in that same range, more norepinephrine here, um, because that's another neurotransmitter to get contraction, and if you're able to kind of, well, both are able to kind of upregulate the body. You know this. I don't know why I'm saying it to you, but I am. Hashtag Vincent Pallone.
No, but it's for the listeners. You just like it's always good. Just
If you don't know who Vincent Pallone is,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what to tell you. But anyways, so like the norepinephrine, epinephrine is really able to upregulate the nervous system,
Mm.
and the cardiac system as well, which is great. But at the same time, like you have to be aware that your adrenals need to be in good health because they're really what keeps re-synthesizing the epinephrine and norepinephrine in order to allow you to like rise to the occasion, let's say, of exercise. Um, in your case, other things, winky faith, you know what I mean? Um, but,
Stick to the script, mate.
I hope your girlfriend's not right there.
Oh,
But let me see what was I saying? Oh yeah, so norepinephrine and epinephrine. So if you and like what's cool is that the norepinephrine actually is like shot right into the nerve
mm,
because like there's a big nerve that comes right into the adrenal glands, and the norepinephrine is synthesized right there, and
mm,
then just like input right into that nerve. So you need to be like aware that stress levels actually will kind of cause you to have a poor response. You'll become what's called like resistant to hormones,
mm,
in that like you won't be able to actually like use the hormone for its desired response
mm,
effectively. So
mm.
if I'm always stressed out because of whatever, and there's just a constantly like low level of epinephrine and norepinephrine being secreted,
Yeah.
then the receptors won't become as receptive to the hormone, and then I won't be able to rise to the occasion to meet the exercise demand as well, and that's really like a fatigue mechanism.
Mm.
So really, like the second biggest thing behind mechanical tension here is stress mechanisms, which could be just an all-day thing. But we're not going to go there yet. And then another hormone is well, wow, that was bad. Almost went to a
Okay,
different system.
before you keep going, like with this whole thing with the stress, like do you
Yeah.
have like maybe like quick advice for people, like your own takes like on how maybe to deal with stress or how to minimize stress to optimize their own training?
Personally, I use a lot of PRI, man. Like it's kind of scary how much that can downregulate someone.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, like people can do like whatever they want that they think downregulates stress that's not active. And if your only output is like activity for stress, then you need to find a new stress management tool for
Mm.
sure. Um, even like using like some GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter,
Yeah.
is pretty effective. The wow, I'm totally remembering, not remembering. The what's the compound in weed
Oof.
that I'm like totally forgetting what it is,
Mm.
because they sell just like bottles of this stuff, and like it's it's legal. It's um
I'm blanking.
wow,
I'm blanking out.
great. Either way, that'll stimulate what's called an endocannabinoid system in your brain. So there are receptors EC1, EC2. It'll stimulate EC1, I believe, which will kind of downregulate your brain, like stress level and perception of pain. Um,
Mm.
so, I mean, I'm just gonna like quick exit out of this thing, click on the old Google, and let me see here. Compounds in weed. Let's see if we can get some results. Am I right? Uh, Oh, CBD.
Mm. Oh, Jesus. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so CBD oil is really what you want there. And I mean, that's something that I think is really worth people's time. It doesn't get you high. It just calms you way down through the mechanism I just mentioned. So that's really a good one to limit stress, I think. What do you do for limiting stress?
So I feel like the number one thing that I do is at least try to sleep. Like that's like the way, that's like the number one way. And like trying to find like, for me it's like between 7 and 8 hours. That's like because I feel like if I get a proper amount of sleep, that then I just. But at the same, it can actually backfire as well because if you just sleep and you wake up and you're like, ah, shit, like I haven't done this. I just it's
Yeah.
kind of like just packing all the stress. But yeah, I feel like for me personally though, like, that's kind of the number one thing, and then the number two is just um surround yourself basically the all good stuff, like surround yourself with like good people who don't really like put too much on you, like kind of that annoy you, like kind of like, all this stuff like that. So it's like all it's about affects all about basically like a good support system and then a good amount of sleep, at least for me personally. And because I definitely felt as well like while during mass that I had a period where I wasn't having any of that, and then I kind of like
Hmm.
that's kind of like my back. It was actually not even my back, like my back and my shoulders, like were just it was brutal. And I just felt like one I wasn't recovering well because of like lack of sleep, and two, just like my stress levels were pretty high. So it's like they're still there, but it's like much lower. And it's because like I feel that I've kind of gotten more things around me sorted out, and so now I can like relax a bit more because of that. But that's like that's just my own. And I feel those like the two ones that you can actually also very easily manage yourself. It's not like something that you have no control over. So it's yeah.
That was a pretty good point. I like the having people around you
Mhm.
that support you kind of thing.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think that's
Point.
like the most important thing. I feel it's like the most important thing. But it definitely just sometimes like it can be really hard, just because like if someone wants to, people want something from you all the time. If you're like depending on what kind of work you have, so like, I can see that can be an issue. But like, to the best of your capability, as much as you can control, like the things you can't control, you just have to become okay with the fact that you can't do them and just let them be gone. Because that way also it helps you just lower that stress level. Because
Yeah.
otherwise you're stressing out about something that you have zero control over and you're just hoping for the best. And just fucking, there's no point of bothering about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And I mean, I'm just going to skip IGF-1 because it doesn't really matter. Not going to lie to you. None of these really matter for muscle growth. It's just like so hard to get all of these to respond. Um, but we'll just skip right to growth hormone though.
Oh,
And you know what? Like I think so much of hypertrophy is so based on your stress response that it's not even funny. Um, but like I'm just gonna skip right to growth hormone because like you kind of just stated, like sleep is super important. And so like growth hormone's released in a cyclical fashion, so it's just a pulsating kind of thing. Like it's never just a flat curve, it's always just a kind of up and down sort of thing. And the most is released during sleep, so it's released in a pulsatile fashion during sleep over the course of like 8 hours. So if you're sleeping 3 hours a night, then you're not really getting a growth hormone response. um, and growth hormone is really not that important for like actually building muscle mass. It's more important for limiting fat mass and kind of repairing tissues that surround muscle
mm,
and just the rest of the body, really, is kind of what you're looking at there. As well, in like going down the path of stress and stuff like that. So if you're stressed out, the immune system responds pretty heavily,
mm,
um, even to a psychological stress. So like physical and psychological stressors, there's one minor difference, but the real, like, I mean, the physical stress that you're undertaking is still going to activate an immune system response. Um, and again, like if your immune system is constantly going to be responding to an imagined stress, then you're kind of screwed in terms of its actual like response to hypertrophy because it's going to become fatigued.
Mm.
And what's cool about the immune system is like I have an article somewhere on my computer, I think, of that I wrote, that's detailing the stress response of the immune system and like how you need a healthy immune system to actually grow muscle mass.
Mm.
But like the basics of it are that the immune system really has these things called interleukins, and interleukin 6 is a very, very powerful little protein that actually helps you to make satellite cells come from their resting place in the basal lamina into the muscle cell. And what satellite cells do is they actually are like an undifferentiated cell, so they could become a few different things. But the biggest one in terms of this discussion is they become a new nucleus, and the new nucleus will actually like upregulate, transcription and translation just by transcription just by being there.
Mm.
So it's a bigger place or there's more, nuclei
Mm.
to allow the growth of protein, like the increase in protein synthesis. So, you need a good immune system to get like the maximum response from whatever hypertrophy protocol you're doing.
Mm.
And like, I think to the general population, like that's a really big thing because I think a lot of people go to work and are stressed out, and they come home and they're stressed out, and they and they read a book and they're stressed out, and they like watch TV and they're stressed out.
Mm.
And so that might be another, I think we could do a whole episode on like stress and
Yeah, for sure.
limitations and like limiting stress and all that sort of stuff. But like for now, like stress is important to limit as much as you can.
Mm.
Um, and I think like even just getting some natural sunlight is really good.
Mm.
Because seasonal depression is definitely a thing. One,
This thing.
right? Seasonal depression occurs if you don't get like sunlight. If you just see darkness all day, like you wake up. Seriously, the Thunderbirds weight room is like the worst for this because it's under the stadium itself.
Mm.
And so, you enter the place in the dark, and
Mm.
then you leave, and it's like, well, I left anyway, and it was like the brightest. It was like 12, so the sun was at its peak. It was the brightest out, and I
Yeah.
like just seared my corneas out every time I left.
But honestly, like, you could argue that because some people kind of enjoy that. It's like you go into like this little dungeon, if you want to call it like that, and it's like where you go and just you lift heavy stuff. It's like supposed to be like all this dark
Yeah,
walls. It's a very, I feel, very individually based as well. But definitely, I don't agree with that you. That's like that sun is really important. But then I was also gonna go next like to follow up with that, like supplements. That's also maybe something that like because I feel like you're definitely like pro supplements. Like, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but like I think it's like 'cause I feel like sure supplements are good. Or like because like, there's all kinds of supplements like we're talking about, like for protein, vitamins,
hmm
whatever it might be. But I feel like for the most part, like as much as possible, even like in terms of protein supplements, you should get it from your food as much as possible. And then if you know that you're maybe like because of lack of time or something, you can't really cook
yeah,
or don't have time to avail, like then you can supplement with some vitamins and protein and that. But for the most part, is like get it as naturally as possible.
yeah. So that's another really good segue. You're just like, dude, we should play volleyball together sometime.
Yeah.
You're setting me up so well for these.
So,
You're just like, and spiked. But so from like the protein standpoint of supplementation, one, if you don't buy, it's like Dynamitize whey protein from DPS Nutrition, you're kind of stupid. It's just like 4-pound tubs of protein for like $50. It's ridiculous. Like it's cheap and it's the best protein I've ever tasted. in terms of like shakes. And holy mother of God, there's like 21 grams of protein in it, 2.2 grams of leucine, and I mean very low carbohydrate. Like it's good, really good. But
you're gonna have to like send a link so we can like put it in the description for people if they want to check it out, yo.
sponsor us. So so then so with the protein supplementation thing is what actually happens when you I think it's like 2 grams per kilogram per day of protein is really what you're shooting for.
No, you mean
Somewhere
like
in that,
per pound,
huh?
like 2 grams per pound.
2 grams, 2.2 grams. I don't know. I think it is per
Yeah,
pound.
yeah. But like that's like kind of like the average for like building muscle.
Right. So, like that's really what you're shooting for a day. And if you are like eating, just ungodly amounts of protein, then what actually occurs is it is like it's used to create fat stores. Like, so if you're overshooting your protein by just like an absurd amount every single day, you're just going to get fatter. So you're not going to get, you're like, you'll get bigger, but it ain't going to be how you want it to be.
No, exactly.
So from that, from there, like, I just recommended what I think is a pretty good protein source. And, if you sit down and you say, all right, like I'm going to have, I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to have this shake. That's great. You have 21 grams of protein, right? I have no idea how much you weigh, but like, let's just say you need like 70 grams of protein to really be there, right? And then you go and you eat chicken, like you're just like, you're like, I am so anabolic right now. I need to eat all this chicken. And you have like 20 grams of protein in the chicken. So you're at 41 grams of protein. And then, for a snack, you're like, I need some beef jerky, which is, you eat 10 grams of that, right? You're at 50. And for dinner, you're like, well, I'm going to have this steak, which is like, you eat, and then you eat that steak and you're like, well, wait, I need another steak. That was delicious. And then you eat another steak and you're like, I need a cheeseburger. And then you have a cheeseburger and that's like, 50 grams of protein right there. Yeah. And you like your absolute limit was 70 grams.
Yeah.
And you just hit 90.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're just making yourself fat and you're probably so you're just pushing yourself into a state of fatness as opposed to a state of fitness.
But not even just that, like also that I believe it's like I think it's 30 grams, like the maximum the body can absorb, like at one specific moment. I might be wrong on this, but it's like 30, like plus or minus 5 grams. I don't know, but then and then it takes like I don't know 3 or 4 hours before like that, and then you can like do the next thing. So it's like even though right there, like you're making a big mistake with just bombing yourself with like a bunch of steaks and cheeseburger. That's a 50 grams of protein. You can't absorb all that. You can absorb it, and the rest is just gonna go towards like where you don't want it to go, and just like you said, it basically at the end of the day, you're just getting fatter, not in a good way, basically.
Yeah, protein is really cool. It's like, dude, I think protein is probably my favorite subject in nutrition, period, because there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
And the digestion of it is so interesting because you can trade out nitrogen groups. Might not be nitrogen groups. I'm terrible with chemistry. They always just refer to it as R groups in whenever I've got it, and I don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay. But you can just switch those off. And so like if we have like if you ingest a lot of alanine but you need like valine, then you can actually deaminate and just take off that R group and then just stick on another one, and you've got the same like base group, but you can just stick on different R groups and get different proteins. So that's really cool. And so like what you need to realize is like the body's going to find a way to deaminate and transaminate proteins, which is just like fancy words for saying like taking off R groups, and like the fate of the skeleton of the actual like protein group is different depending on deamination or transamination. But like the point is that like you're gonna find a way to make new proteins, and if those new proteins fates are just like to become like to fuel fat cells, then you're just gonna get fatter. And like so that's I think where the like the absorption thing comes from, is like there's different fates of different proteins, and like how like what their terminal stage is like is different, and so it doesn't, like you can only eat like so much leucine before the body just takes off that leucine grouping and then just puts on something else because it needs something else. And that's why I think it's like 2.0 to 2.5 grams of leucine per meal is like really the recommended like limit of, maybe it's 2.7 per of leucine, but yeah, and like leucine's a great thing, and it stimulates the biggest cellular cascade for muscle mass known to man, which is the mammalian target of rapamycin, mTOR complex 1, mTOR C1. A lot of words there, but whatever. So it stimulates that directly, but again, like it's a question of like if it reaches the cell. Like if at some point the body needs a different protein, the body's going to take a different protein.
Just a quick on that though, like like so sure, like the limit is like, well, let's say like it's 2.7 grams of leucine per meal, like, but things like for the average person though, A, they probably don't know what leucine is. If they do, like, way, that's awesome. But like, B, it's kind of like, how do you know on what to eat to get that amount of leucine exactly that? And then kind of, and especially like, I feel like for if you're a student or like someone's like kind of like just about to do something with work after college or something, like struggling, not really sure. Like it's like, do you have any like maybe quick tips or anything like that, or like just like quick kind of what's really good, what's bad, we should avoid?
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm leaning more and more towards. I just remember the other thing I was going to say about nutrition that you brought up, which was a good point. Perfect segues. But
I'm assisting all day.
I think this episode's name should literally just be Perfect Segues. But anyways, yeah, like I lean towards like a pretty heavily vegetarian diet with like lower red meat, which is surprising to a lot of people given the way I look.
Yeah.
But like I try to eat as much like poultry and like vegetable based protein as I can, because like one, I think it's just a really easy way to maintain like a healthy kind of diet and not be like, I'm fucking dirty bulking, bro, like, which is dumb. So I think like that's one way to just like almost force people to maintain like a good diet without like eating just an absurd amount of like ice cream and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like a little red meat, a lot of poultry, fish, like these are all things that you should be eating.
Yeah.
In terms of like actual like protein consumption.
Mm.
And then in your perfect segue question of what's it called? Vegetables and like the vitamin thing. Definitely eating vegetables is like that's a big deal to me for people who are trying to get huge, because so the like actual like metabolic damage that occurs when you're performing muscular activity is reduced pretty quickly. And so like going back to our little thing on like recovery and how important that is for muscle growth, limiting what's called reactive oxygen species is something that is humongous. Reactive oxygen species damage the cells by attacking the actual nucleus, and like they disrupt the protein coding in the DNA. So, and the oxidative damage can be repaired, it can be limited, by like the funniest protein names ever. It's SOD, so sod, and I believe there's another one called socks, so which is just hilarious to me. But so like those are limiting to the reactive oxygen species, but at the same time, you can actually enhance the you can actually enhance those what are they called, proteins, by ingesting vitamins and minerals. So obviously, like the biggest micronutrients there, vitamins, minerals, are found in plants.
Mm.
And so I mean that's a real big money thing too. Like, and I'm not saying, when you go home, you probably shouldn't eat vegetables like right away. Like if you're within an hour from the gym, then I wouldn't go home and just like start crushing vegetables. I'd go home, I'd eat some carbs, I'd eat some protein, and then probably a half hour later after eating that, I'd start eating vegetables. And to limit like excessive metabolic damage caused by reactive oxygen species, because you have to go into a pathway that is highly productive of the ROS mechanisms for hypertrophic growth. So yeah, eat your goddamn vegetables, kids. I don't know where else I was going to go with that. Oh yeah, and like circling back to the recovery and like what kind of protein you eat. So poultry actually contains okay. Because protein actually, so the poultry actually contains choline in it, which, if we recall our muscular physiology classes, acetylcholine is what causes contraction. Like the neurotransmitter that jumps across the junction causes a whole big cascade of events that causes contraction. And so the acetyl group of that is found from fats, but I've read it's also from carbohydrate-derived carbon groups. So the same thing that makes acetyl coenzyme A, like that's basically where the acetyl group comes from. So the however many chain carbon forms, like the 18 carbon fats or whatever, like they just cleave off carbons to make acetyl groups. That's where the acetyl group for acetylcholine comes from. And then and then the choline is from the diet. So if you want to like immediately resynthesize acetylcholine so you can be prepared to contract again from a nervous system standpoint, you should probably be eating poultry and a lot of nuts, like peanuts have it in them. So that's like one of my favorite post-workout meals. Is like an apple for carbohydrates, or like one or two apples cut up for the carbohydrates. Just scoop some peanut butter right in that. Eat that, delicious, and then some poultry of some kind, some like chicken, turkey, something like that, for post-workout carbs, choline, protein. Just yeah, I mean that's kind of what I like to do personally.
Dude, that's actually pretty awesome because I'm off on all this, to be honest. Like I'm gonna be straight up with you. Like I basically eat zero. Well, actually, no. I basically eat little to zero vegetables. I'm just gonna be honest. I know I should, honestly, the thing is I should do much better, but like I don't know, man. And like as a post-workout meal, to be honest, like sometimes it's just like I'll buy like a little like bottle of milk. Like I don't know, it's like no, like 5 deciliters or some shit. But it's like a bottle of milk. And I'll buy like a little like chocolate bar or something. That's like my post-workout meal.
Dude,
It's awful, man. Like that's also why probably, because like this I know that I should be doing what I'm doing, but I'm also at the same time just like, you know what? Let's see where this goes. I just like try and see if we can pull this off while just really like not really letting our body, giving the body the feelings.
Oh my god,
I'm
dude.
basically like I'm killing myself while killing myself like even more, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of stupid, but
I know, like I have been feeling the side effects of all of this, but yeah, definitely, definitely the thing is like I feel it's a hard thing though to do, you know, like especially I feel with the veggies, like if you're someone who doesn't really eat of them too much, like
yeah,
especially veggies and fruits, like those are the two things that you should definitely be like, in your diet and like, on a consistent basis. I'd say like around like 2 to 3 fruits a day is a good like merit to have. But it's then again it comes down to just it's like what do you choose like between do you have to pick an apple or do you have to pick like a chocolate bar. Most of
yeah,
the time people go for chocolate bar, and that's kind of where it's like as long as you're aware of what you're doing, because like I know that what I'm doing is not the right thing to do, but I still do, and it's like as long as you like know what you're doing and like, if you're facing the facts, you don't complain and then say, oh, why is this happening? Then like that's the case. But if you're just complaining, I have no idea. Then just that's pretty much stupid.
yeah. I mean, I like I'm just gonna circle back to our like client buy-in thing from last episode. Like, I think that the smallest increments are like the biggest wins sometimes. And like if you can get someone to choose an apple instead of a chocolate bar,
Mm,
like that's great.
mm,
And you could just be like, can you eat half the chocolate bar this time?
mm,
Like, just like starting there. And like, a big thing with getting yoked is obviously like your nutrition.
sick.
Like, because you can't just eat everything under the sun all the time and expect to get massive. Like,
Yeah,
it needs to have some nutritional content to it.
yeah,
Um, and like just changing people's diets. Like, I think that people need to be aware that like you're gonna need to change your diet, and like, but the smallest increments,
mm,
and well paired with kind of like just teaching people what they should be doing
mm,
is a big win
mm,
most of the time
mm,
slash all the time. And like the diet with the highest adherence is always going to win out over anything else.
mm,
Because like, I mean, I say like I'm a vegetarian like diet promoter, but I don't think it's really a promotion of the vegetarian based diet, because like I still want people to eat meat, and I still think meat is a really, really good thing. But like, being more selective with like how much red meat you eat, and like when you eat red meat, because
yeah,
I don't think there's anything inherently bad about red meat. I think there's like a clear statement you could make about red meat, is that like eating it constantly and all the time is not a good thing.
mm,
But like eating it for some meals, some of the time, like pretty much anything else is fine.
mm,
Um, so yeah, from like a nutrition standpoint, that's you know, just what you're looking for is adherence is really the biggest thing. And like I think what helps is definitely having like a plate that's like good to look at, you know, because like if you have foods that are all the same color of gray,
yeah,
then it's not going to be that you're like, okay, that's I don't want to eat that. But if you have like you have apples with peanut butter, which like you just know are going to taste good, and you have
mm,
and you have like your favorite meat on the plate, and you have your favorite veggie on the plate, then like all that is like very colorful,
yeah,
and you like want to eat that.
yeah, yeah,
So it's just kind of changing that stuff too.
yeah. It also comes down as again a kind of individual thing where like some of like for me, I just to be frank, I really like. Sure, it definitely is more attractive. Like when there's like a colorful plate, like you're like, oh, this is gonna be amazing. It's gonna taste amazing. But at the same time, though, I'm the kind of person where I can basically eat like the same dinner for like 3 to 4 days straight.
Hmm.
It's like for me, like food is more just like a fuel just to get through the day, like kind of with the workouts. While other people, like it's kind of for them, food is a thing where it has to look pretty, it has to be like taste a specific way, and that's totally fine. It's like again, it's like You have the time, you have the will, go ahead and do it. But at the end of the day, like it's all about the small changes. Like so, say for example, someone who doesn't eat any fruits at all, like don't like maybe like get them straight onto fruits, but maybe cut down little by little like the sweets they eat or something like that, and then slowly, gradually maybe go into eating fruits or veggies more. And like for some people, like, they need like a little slow process change, while others I feel like for me, examples like I just need like, the drastic change. I guess immediately, like, just drop everything and go straight into that. Like that's the way
Yeah.
I actually. So then again, it's like kind of a way where like the person needs to know themselves, and you need to have a relationship with the client or athlete where you can have them. You're like, okay, so we're gonna do this, or like, let's try this, and then because again, like different things work great with different people. So also a great thing to keep in mind. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like something that I've been playing around with recently is that I don't know if I've ever heard anyone talk about is almost like the way you eat the normal things you eat.
mm,
So, for example, like and like almost like trying to kill off like the archetypes that exist within your food. So, like if I say sushi, like you're gonna immediately think like a round, piece of
yeah,
whatever the like seaweed with like rice around it with vegetables and like a fish inside of it, right?
yeah.
Well, like recently I've started eating like sushi bowls. So I take all the ingredients of sushi and just like toss it in a bowl without the seaweed,
Yeah.
but like basically everything that goes into a sushi, toss that shit in a bowl, mix it up, put some soy sauce in it, and boom, like it's delicious. And it's sushi, but it's like, one, it's homemade, so I know what's going into it. And two, like it's pleasant to look at, and it's like a novel exercise for my brain to be like, oh, this is also sushi, but I want to eat this, and it tastes delicious to me because like I've had sushi, hundreds of times, but it's never been in a bowl before.
I do want to say that, like, I swear, like, any Japanese person listening to this is gonna hate you right now. Like,
Oh
you're
yeah,
you're literally taking something that's like made a specific way. Like, there's a purpose behind why it's made the way it's made. Here you are, just
yeah,
like, listen, take all the ingredients, throw them in a bowl, mix it up, throw some soy sauce, boom, American sushi for you.
yeah. But like my point is like if you've never eaten something a certain way, like maybe you should try it a certain way.
No, I definitely agree,
Like,
but like I
that's
said,
what I'm trying to say, motherfucker.
but no, because the thing is, like, I definitely I like that idea. Like, it definitely sounds good, but I can definitely see how we might get some hate mail from some angry Japanese.
Whatever.
But whatever, like, fuck them. They don't know. They're not yoked. They don't know how to get yoked. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
So I'm gonna try to finish up my nerd physiology thing on hypertrophy.
Oh, please go ahead.
Um, just to really, really wrap it up with that. But like so the two other biggest things we've already covered the mechanical tension and the metabolic damage a little bit.
Mm,
So like metabolic damage, like you need to basically produce a lot of hydrogen to kind of like let the cell know that it's gonna get fucked. And the best way to do that by far is through glycolysis. So you need to kind of go into glycolysis for um, your actual like um, in order to like create the best amount of like fluid movement and hydrogen production because really you need that to occur um, because like you need the muscle to be anaerobic. So like that's a kind of backward statement, but the muscle needs to become anaerobic through a hypoxic mechanism so that anaerobic glycolysis can occur,
mm.
which increases the lactate production a lot, which increases the actual growth factors of the muscle through like basically smashing this thing with an acidic environment. So the increase in growth factors increases transcription and translation, which, God, if you don't get that that's really important for muscle protein synthesis by now, I don't know what to tell you. Um, and then the final thing, which is like maybe important, but not really important, is actual like muscle damage, like micro tears,
Mm.
because people think that like you need to repair the muscle to be bigger, but I don't really think that's really that important. Like I think muscle can get bigger without actually being like damaged, and I think tearing the muscle is kind of like a waste of your training volume.
Mm.
Like if you're focusing on that. But yeah, and then from a practical standpoint, I think a few things. Like one, you need to be in shape enough to actually recover from the workouts you're undertaking. The second thing I think you need to be is strong-ish at least, because if you're not strong, you can't recruit a lot of muscle fibers, and if you can't recruit a lot of muscle fibers, then you're not really maximizing your growth potential. And then really, I think that's it. Is like you need to be in shape and strong. That's the biggest thing. Because if you're huffing and puffing after a set of 8, then we have issues. Because the real golden range of like reps is 8 to 15, like hard reps. So you should use your 10 rep maximum and do sets of 8.
Mm.
And in my head, like you don't need to start anywhere big in terms of the number of sets.
Mm.
Like you could start at sets of 2 and just kind of slowly increase sets every 2 weeks.
Mm.
And after doing that for 3 or 4 months, then you go back and you increase the weight.
Mm.
And maybe that time, instead of starting at 2 sets of 8, you start at 3 sets of 8.
Mm.
So you rest for 2 to 3 minutes between sets. You get huge. That's really what we're looking at. You take care of your nutrition. Boom, done.
Yeah. No, but also just like that, kind of like what you're saying, that you need to be somewhat in shape. That's like where the conditioning also comes in, where a lot of people think that, oh, like I shouldn't do any conditioning at all if I want to get huge. That's like, no, like, you should still be able to function as a human being. Like,
Yeah.
some conditioning should be done. Like, I'd say like 2 times a week is more than enough. Like some nice, like high intensity conditioning, like some interval training that's like however you want to do it. You're gonna do a treadmill, like whatever like that fits you. But just I think twice a week is more than enough. I don't know. You might think more or less. I don't know, but I feel like twice a week is more than enough.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I think, like, here's the biggest thing. I think you can tick off a lot of the boxes we just talked about with, like, 1 day a week
Mm.
of exercise in the aerobic system.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, just go outside and go for a bike ride.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the easiest. Like, you just got 10 minutes of sunlight, which allows an increase in ATP amount produced by the mitochondria.
Mm.
So, right, like you just have a higher energy potential to recover from the exercise you just undertook, and like you're letting your visual system intake sunlight, which releases the melatonin on a clock. So, like 12 hours later, if you wake up at 5:30, you see the sunrise. Here, I don't know what it's like there, because oceans apart, baby. But
We have moves coming up.
okay. So if you wake up and you see the sun at, let's say you wake up and you see the sun at 7 a.m., then your pineal gland is going to release melatonin on a clock, and 12 hours later, you're like, oh my god, I'm tired. Boom, like that's melatonin being released because it's time for you to go to sleep. Is really what you're looking at. So really, like you just ticked off 2 big boxes right there, like sleep for recovery, and or like actually like enabling yourself to really go to sleep for recovery, and like having the energy potential to recover from the exercise you just undertook, and like then stimulating the aerobic system. And so like what's also kind of interesting is the like I just briefly touched on that mTOR pathway, the one with a lot of names.
Yeah.
So that thing can also become kind of insensitive to change. And so the opposite pathway is called AMPK, or adenosine monophosphate kinase.
Mm.
And so that's a big energy regulator in the cell after there's been a lot of contraction. So you need to contract a lot to produce AMP, which is then going to initiate the AMPK pathway, and it's going to inhibit mTOR. So if you have just 1 day a week of like this recovery AMPK thing happening, then you can inhibit mTOR that 1 day, that one session, which
Mm.
retains mTOR sensitivity throughout your entire training block. So I think that's a really big money thing there.
Mm.
And then, like as well, what's kind of interesting is I'm not sure because I just read this like yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that.
Mm.
But there's a way you can rephosphorylate ADP to become a TP.
Mm.
And like I've known, and it's called adenylate kinase is the enzyme that performs this action, and it takes two ADPs, smashes them together, and then produces one ATP and one AMP.
Mm.
So the only thing that I'm not sure of is how much ATP is produced that way. I believe there's also an ammonia buildup or a magnesium buildup. I'm not sure which one, but there's definitely a metabolite buildup through this pathway.
Mm.
So it's it's got its upsides and its downsides like fucking everything else in the body, but that's a pretty solid one. And the plus side here is if you're one of those guys who just like doesn't want to go long distance with anything, then doing like short intervals. This is actually one of the ways that ATP is uh, rephosphorylated, or
Mm.
ADP is rephosphorylated. So you could probably go some short intervals as well as long intervals and get some AMPK production.
Mm.
Um, I'd probably recommend doing the short intervals fasted, so then there's a higher likelihood that you have less creatine in your system and there's less ability of you to rephosphorylate ADP with the creatine phosphate pathway,
Mm.
and more of a likelihood that the adenylate kinase pathway will take over.
Mm.
But I mean, that's just me thinking through this thing like on the spot. I'm probably horribly wrong.
No, but I think we should like the last little topic we can cover, like, as then we just like kind of finish it up, wrap it up, to summarize, is that I feel like a lot of people always like ask, oh, like should I have a big protein snack or meal at night before I go to bed? Like what are your thoughts on that? Just a quick little.
Um, well, it's kind of funny you asked that. I think yeah, like that's probably not a bad idea. Except if you've gone way the fuck over in your protein limit that day. So if you need to get just like a little more protein in because you're not quite at that limit, then yeah, like I think before bed is a good time.
Mm.
Is probably a really good time because there a lot of biological functions will happen during sleep because it's you're not moving at a level that's really really high.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think the biggest thing that people need to worry about with sleep is that like dehydration. Because if you're gonna train in the morning, like you need to be hydrated, not only because like it allows you to sweat and deal with heat better, but also because like actually like having the ability to flush water into muscle, called transient hypertrophy, by the way, is that there's I believe it comes in through aquaporins, and then those aquaporins actually start a cascade that stimulates muscle hypertrophy. So
Mm.
like getting a pump stimulates muscle hypertrophy, and you need water in your system to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the bigger thing I think people should worry about.
Mm.
But I mean, I'm probably gonna honestly get off this call and be like, "Fuck, I just forgot like four things that I really wanted to mention."
Dude.
But I
It's
feel
yeah.
pretty good about this one.
Yeah. No, honestly, like we can, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff more I feel like we haven't really covered in this one, but we can always have a part two and I can have to talk about more because like hypertrophy it's a broad topic. There's like so many things to
Yeah.
consider, so it's hard to just take everything like and actually go deep into it because you can always just do the surface, but the purpose of this is like actually like kind of going through and explaining like why this like not just saying, oh, you should do this and like, okay, bro, got you.
Yeah.
It's like
I think that was this episode. Like, I think I went real deep. I
no,
think I
yeah,
went way too deep.
yeah, no, it's a good thing though. I just hope that the listeners, will understand, like at least kind of a little bit get a bit more clear understanding of like how things work,
Yeah.
like a way, and yeah, that we all can just become fucking yoked and real sickos.
Yeah.
So, what I'm gonna do? I think I'm just gonna introduce. I'm gonna try and like have sicko mode. In the beginning of this, like it's the music before this.
We should use the video of us dancing and then have sicko mode over it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But only the fucking good part of sicko mode, not the shitty part.
No. Fuck the shit.
Which is like 90% of the song, but whatever.
Yeah, dude. No, alright. No, I think that's a good place to just call it a day.
Yeah, hour and 8 minutes basically.
Yeah.
If you've listened this far, thank you very much for tuning in. Dad, I know that you're the only one who listened this far, so I want you to know that I'm wearing your Will Run for Beer t-shirt right now. Look at that. Will Run for Beer. Hell yeah.
That's your conditioning right there, folks.
Bingo.
Wow. That's great.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you for listening. If Artem wants to say something, say it now or forever hold your pee.
Well, no, I just want to say, like, yeah, we're gonna, for those interested, we're gonna put in the description the protein supplement that Declan mentioned, and if he wants to share with his article as well, we'll put that as well as a link or something. We'll see. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. It has been a pleasure talking again with our beloved bear, Declan Morrissey. And again, that's Morrissey with 2 R's and 2 S's. We make that clear again for people who don't know that. Yours truly. Yeah, thank you so much, and until next time. Are you